you to offer context for us, right, on policing in Atlanta, to help frame this conversation. So we can help the viewing audience, everyone in this room, to get a real framework, and help people like me. I've lived here for 18 years, so I don't know a lot about the Red Dogs. I don't know about certain things about what happens in Atlanta proper, and I'm gonna say Atlanta proper, because not the folks in Gwinnett. So, that's not Atlanta. That's not Atlanta. So, and just even tell us a little bit about the work that you did to have to get the Red Dot Unit disbanded.
Sure. So, thank you for having me. Thank you for being here. Thank you for caring. Who knows the name of the Goody Mob song that references the Red Dot Unit? What's the name of the song? Okay, what's the line? 1 to the 2 to 3 them dirty red dogs are hit, don't when they got everybody on their hands and feet, and they ain't gonna leave until they find the key. Right? So there are lots of people around the country who knew that line, had no idea what it was about. The Red Dog Unit, it was Atlanta's response to the war on drugs. During a period of time, following the Rockefeller drug laws, following the 1994 crime bill, cities all over the country decided that they could segment the way that drugs were regulated and enforced in our country. And it was racially segregated. So the war on drugs was a war against Black people.
Come on now.
The fact is that drugs are used and sold by all races, or by Black people and white people at the same rates, used and sold, right? But there were not white communities with battering rams. So the Red Dog Unit was notoriously violent. The violence of the Red Dog Unit really knew no bounds. I am from Atlanta. My dad was born in Atlanta in Summerhill in 1935. I always say that. I don't have one man in my family, my dad is now 88 years old, who has not had an abusive encounter with the Red Dog Unit. Not one, right? Not one. They're known as the jump out boys.
That's right.
My very first motion as a law student was against the Red Dog officer, and I won. My very first motion as a lawyer was against the Red Dog officer, and I won, right? Because it was just that much violence. The Red Dog Unit was responsible for things like Atlanta's strip search scandal, where people in the West End and Southwest Atlanta were stopped and strip searched, cavity searches, and when they would show up to court, we would say, "Judge, he was strip searched." And the cops would say, "Never happened, never happened." And it would blow over. And so there were enough of those cases for that to be a scandal. But the Red Dog Unit was disbanded, one, after they raided a white gay bar in Midtown called the Eagle. Well, it's not in Midtown, it's like on Ponce, which has some gentrification name now, but I don't know what it's called now. But they raided it, they laid people on the ground, they searched, they had them laying on the ground in their underwear for hours. And from that grew a lawsuit. And during that period of time, the strip search scandal, right, and it was in the wake of the killing of Katherine Johnston, who was a grandmother in the Bluff, or English Avenue, who was killed and murdered by a task force that was Atlanta Red Dog officers and some federal officers. In that case, they made up information from a supposed informant to give them access to her home, and eventually the informant came clean. So the short of it is that the Red Dog was disbanded by Mayor Reed. Building locally to organize for community safety was one of the leaders of that, and it was reformed as the Apex unit. Now we have other tactical units, and so racism and police violence is adaptable, it changes names, but the function doesn't change. And so from Red Dogs to Cop City, really there is no transition, there is a different name. And so the name now is the type unit, right, and Cop City, but it's all the same violence, all the same history linked to chattel slavery, all the same abuses, right? So that's why I, of course, oppose Cop City. But Southern Center also opposes Cop City because our mission is to decriminalize race and poverty and the police are ground zero for that.
Thank you. I'm just going to ask you to clarify because I didn't catch the new name of what is it? to now? What is the new current name?
So there is the Titan unit, and they
Titan
say
unit.
they're focusing on gangs, guns, and drugs. And then there is something called, it's a long name, but there's a tactical unit for traffic, which is essentially like New York stop and frisk,
Okay.
but for traffic. And that is the the roadway version of these tactical
Okay.
units.
Okay, thank you. Wow. I'm gonna come back to you in a second because I'm gonna ask Mariah, could you give us a overview and a description of what Cop City really is? I had a conversation earlier today, just by happenstance, by a Black police officer who, I was like, sometimes God leads phone calls to land a certain way. And I got a whole education based on a Black police officer's version, and it left me in awe. So what is your understanding as a former politician, as an activist, as a grassroots, and I want to say, and he was for it. So what is your understanding of Cop
I need to
City?
know what this man's understanding was of the situation. We gotta circle back to that.
So talk about it.
So Cop City, for those who are not yet familiar, is a allegedly $90 million police militarization complex that is slated to replace large swaths of the South River Forest, which is the largest urban forest in North America. It is going to be, if built, a driver of environmental degradation across the city. Anyone else having a hard time breathing today? Anyone else having a hard time? Anyone else here know that the neighborhoods in Southwest Atlanta already have the 9th worst air quality in the United States of America? So without the lungs of Atlanta, big tree canopies like those in the South River Forest, what do you think will happen in the city of Atlanta? We're gonna have a lot more days like today. So Cop City is not only a threat to the city of Atlanta and a lot of the ways that Tiffany described, the continuation of histories of police terror and brutality, it is also a main driver of environmental racism to come for our children who are gonna grow up with asthma, who are gonna grow up having a lot of different health conditions because of a lack of healthy air to breathe and clean water to drink, because of the ways that this facility is already, and the usage of this land is already impacting watersheds that people get their drinking water from right now. Atlanta's alleged Cop City that they have proposed to build is also ground zero in a lot of ways, because we've already seen documents uncovered by open records requests by very savvy journalists here in the city, uncovering the fact that they are intending to train police officers, not just from Atlanta here, but people from all over the state of Georgia and all over the country. And there is nothing to say that they won't also train police officers from all over the world here as well, given relationships that the Atlanta Police Department already have with folks like the Israeli Defense Forces, who come and bring their people here to train and vice versa. And so I'm so glad to be here with y'all this evening to talk about how this is going to impact the people of Atlanta, but this fight is also for the future of public safety in the South and across the country. Because a lot of the tactics that Tiffany was describing that will inevitably be perpetuated at this facility are going to be exported to cities across the South to ensure the put down of people's movements across the South and the terrorization of Black communities across the South. I don't know if you wanted to speak some to the Red Dog Unit getting back in the news earlier this year. Yeah, do you want to speak to that? Speaking of the exportation of police terror from Atlanta to other places.
I'm gonna stop you because you guys will know the name, you will know the history, you watch the news, you will know the story. And if we're connecting the dots here, right? So I may have a deer in headlights look on occasion because I'm such in awe about the harm that we can do to each other in the quote-unquote United States of America. But it's continued. It's continued, and actually there's a movement around this too, because we got cops moving from place to place that are doing harm too. Go ahead, Sister Tiffany.
That's right. I'm a Black Southerner. I love Black cities, and so Memphis is one of my favorite cities. The police chief in the Memphis Police Department, who was responsible for the officers who killed Tyree Nichols, was also a commander in the Red Dot unit. So it speaks to how, and there were allegations against her and her unit at the time that she transitioned, where you and I, if I get a bad reference from my current employer, it's going to be very difficult to get a job, let alone a job as a chief of anything. But that's not the way the policing works. And so there's been some coverage of that connection, and Michael Julian Bond, one of our city council members, said, well, Atlanta has nothing to do with that because obviously Memphis has problems that we don't have. Because those officers are doing things Atlanta officers know not to do because we have the best police department in the nation. Yet Atlanta sustains 8% of complaints against its officers. 8% of citizen complaints related to violence are sustained, meaning they find that there's some basis of fact for those complaints. So our city is delusional, and we've got to be very clear that as Black cities, it doesn't mean that our elected officials don't do harm. It doesn't matter what rappers they know. It doesn't matter what t-shirts they wear. It doesn't matter if they march. If they are making your children and future generations less free, they are not with you.
Thank you. I'm going to stay here for a second because you guys have given us a history. You guys are starting to connect the dots for us. And so, for me, the New York girl, Black, the Caribbean, I have to ask a question, right? So I need some history from the United States. So you said the Red Dog Unit was in response to the war on drugs, right? What is currently the war in Atlanta? Because I don't hear us talking about there's a war on drugs in Atlanta. What is this cop city? Why is this building needed? Why is the police foundation? Y'all don't call me because I ain't giving a donation. But what is the war? Who we fighting? Who are we fighting? I'm gonna have you guys start now.
This is a war on the uprising of 2020.
Okay.
This is in the aftermath of the largest uprisings in North America. The Atlanta Police Foundation, who is the main driver and the main funder, and actually the owner of Cop City. I keep forgetting the fact that this is not actually going to be owned by the city. The Atlanta Police Foundation trying to reassert their control over Black communities. At a time when people are starting to understand that communities are made safer by affordable housing and healthcare and childcare and education, and where their supremacy in the public safety apparatus has been challenged. Their dominance has been challenged. And so, in response to that uprising, they seized hold of a narrative that more police training, more diversity in our officers would be the magic key to heal all the wounds in our communities and to actually deliver a style of policing that serves the people. And so with that, they were able to make arguments that Cop City would be the answer to allegedly rising crime rates, heal all these divides, et cetera, when at the end of the day, it's a form of counterinsurgency. The people rose up, and so this is the police rising up in response to reassert their dominance.
Okay, what do you think?
I want us to know that cop cities are being proposed all over the country.
True.
So Cop Academy in Chicago is one iteration. I'm getting text messages from friends all over the country with their police departments proposals. Because Atlanta is believed to be a progressive city, Cop City here means cop cities everywhere because it means the militarization of police in Black communities is a non-partisan issue. It is an issue where consolidated state power agrees regardless of political party. So it's critical that we understand that, one, there is no statistical data demonstrating that Cop City will help anyone.
Right.
Secondly, the Atlanta Police Foundation has been looking to increase its footprint in the city for years and years. Hooks and I organized a table sit at a festival in like 2009 protest the closure of the Southeast's largest no-barrier homeless shelter in Peachtree and Pine. What Kasim Reed said at the time is that the city was going to acquire that building and they were going to turn it into a domestic terrorism training facility, combat domestic terrorism, okay? What are we seeing Cop City protesters charged with for the very first time in the state's history? The domestic terrorism statute had never been used until Cop City, right? So the game that the Atlanta Police Foundation plays is finding real estate, attaching the veneer of public safety interests, and then moving our cowardly city legislators and leaders to do what they say they need to have done. So Cop City is just a 10 times bigger facility than what was promised at Peachtree and Pine, which, by the way, hasn't become anything.
It's empty. It's empty. Thank you, ladies. I am going to shift us just a little bit about who is in this conversation. Where do we think this conversation is going? Like I said earlier, there is a true silence around Cop City, from where I live to south to all different areas of the city. And so, KJ, I have a question for you. So, a little context. We know there was a poll by 2 Emory professors that were here in Atlanta revealed a racial divide, no surprise, supporting Cop City. Also, we don't have time to talk about the City of Buckhead movement, but we'll leave that alone. But I do believe that one was given for the other, but that's just me. In a nutshell, the study showed engaged white voters supported Cop City, right? And engaged black voters are opposed to Cop City. Now, the professors believe that unengaged voters, black voters, will ultimately decide what happens with Cop City, right? So we have a portion that, okay, can we just stop and say, I like logical stuff, so if they're unengaged, I don't know how they're gonna get to vote, but that's a whole other conversation. That's just not logical. So, question for you. So, how do we get the quote-unquote unengaged voters involved in this conversation? Why and what is the values that we need to present to them to get connected?
So first I want to say, we're clear that the police are not our protectors, right? We suffer at the hands of the system on a daily basis, right? The system was built on our backs, literally. So we see that we've been discarded, we've been abused by the system, and that's the point. It's not that we're disengaged because we don't care, we're disengaged because we do care, right? Every election cycle, it's black voters to the rescue. Every time there's legislation to be moved, it's black voters to the rescue. We put Biden in office, Warnock, Ossoff. Would have put Stacey there if they didn't steal that shit. But it is what it is, right? We're the folks that are most impacted by the decisions of the same elected officials that beg us to put them in position. We suffer because these people come to us and beg for votes, for canvassers, for money, and they turn around and they sell us out the first chance they get. So we're disengaged of a matter of, I can't get what I need from these people that say that they're for me, right? The very means of the people are at risk. Cop City threatens our very right to protest, right? Cop City threatens the right for us to stand in the street and use our voice as a means of building collective power, as a vehicle for making societal change. You become a domestic terrorist. You get jailed without bail, without bond. You won't have a court date. I've been there myself. Not for domestic terrorism, but just for a court date. So we're seeing the rise of fascism in a very real way. Like in the realest of ways. Cop City, like you said, is ground zero for what will become a very popular trend, not just in America, but across the world, right? So it's on us to make sure that we do everything that's in our power to make sure that this thing is stopped. So, but just to speak more to what it is, right? Cop City is giving police the training and ability to have urban warfare and suppression tactics at their will to be used against the people. Urban warfare and suppression, not unlike what we see in other countries, in other cities, with organized resistance everywhere. We're seeing people shot in the streets in South Africa. We're seeing people shot in the street in France, in South America. Atlanta is about to be the same place the minute we allow this thing to take precedent. So I think it's not a question of how we get people engaged. It's how we get them to do anything and everything possible to make this thing stop, to get us to see some reform, to get $90 million in real services and real change to happen in this city, to fill every single pothole probably wouldn't even be $90 million. Right. So that's what I'm at.
So I'm gonna push back just a little bit, I'm gonna challenge you just a little bit, right? Because we do need engagement, right? We do need people to come in tune, and I'm gonna say it that way, so I don't wanna say wake up, because I think we're already woke. I think we're tired, actually, of how woke we are, and we need a rest, actually. We need a break. And so, but how do I get a 25-year-old who is making the best day of their lives, meaning they woke up, they got breakfast, they're living life, they're able to go to work, and they have a job, they might still be trying to hustle up a job. But what do we say to them in this next upcoming cycle? And we are going to hold fast in the prayer and the truth that this will become a referendum. That they need to come out and vote for this, because yes, they're tired, but they may not even know about Cop City. How do we get that in front of them? How do we get them to understand that this is your life? Like, this is your life. This is not today. This is literally when you have grandkids or you have babies, and this is, how do we get them engaged that way?
So it starts with meeting people where they're at, specifically the youth, right? We're talking about 25 younger, 30 and younger. These are folks who are engaged heavily in activities based in a capitalist society. We have to let them know that capitalism will not save you.
Sorry, I said that too loud. Sorry.
It won't.
That's
It's
my heart.
It was a hard lesson that I had to learn myself in 2019 and 2020. Capitalism is not going to keep you safe when the police are standing across from you. They got their guns drawn, and legally they can do what they want to do. You will not see a day in court. You do not have any rights. It is you and it's APD. It's you and it's GDI. And they decide what freedoms you have. They decide what liberties you have.
Lord, did somebody put that on TikTok? I ain't on TikTok, so I don't know. I mean,
Capitalism will not save you.
I'm getting there on TikTok one day, but that's right there. Can you put that on a t-shirt? I need that on a t-shirt.
I'll put it on a t-shirt. You in the print shop. Yeah.
Thank you. Just moving me some money. So I like that answer. I didn't sit with that for a second. Because capitalism will not save you, but the young people need to know that. Because when you're trying to be an influencer, you're trying to run coins, and you're not really studying anything, you're not reading anything. I bought the New York Times today. They looked at me like I was crazy. It's just like, listen, I need this historical moment. If the Supreme Court is going to screw us over in the way they have in the last 48 hours, I need that documented, okay? I need that historically documented. I want to see it, and I don't want to Google it, because I might Google something wrong. So next question is, because, so now we know that we have the politicians that's a whole other conversation about how Black politicians do this. But then I also want to ask, Reverend, I know you grew up here, right? And you grew up near this proposed site. So I want you to kind of give us just an understanding of your life growing up in that area, what you know to be true and your truth around that. But then I want to probably ask one of the hardest things for Black Atlantans to, how do I want to say this, part ways with. So as someone who runs political campaigns, I know how people love certain politicians. I know, like, I've come to learn, right? We honor that. I've come to learn that especially our elders really love some of our black politicians that I'm like, on paper, they're looking, but they're really raggedy policy-wise. So I have a question for you. So I want you to tell us, you were living close to you grew up close to the site. I want you to tell us kind of a history of that from your perspective. And then I want to ask a question of you to tell us some ways that, how can Black Atlanta kind of break this spirit of we've got to love certain politicians, because I know where Andre is loved, right? I saw the t-shirts. Right? How do we get them to understand, I can love you and not support everything that you do, and this is bad for our community?
Well, the first thing they gotta do is stop listening to the concerned Black clergy, because they rubber stamp everything he does. There is not one pastor who is a member of the concerned Black clergy who has decided to take a stand, and Andre Dickens runs to them for his Men's Warehouse commercials every time he does a press conference when he can get them, right? And then they go around and say things like, we need police.
You're not going to grow.
K&G? K&G. Okay, D&K. Well, I don't get my clergy outfits from over there. I probably can't shop where they shop because I am not worthy. They have already made it known they want nothing to do with me, and that is fine because I don't want to have anything to do with them because I'm just like Jesus. Depart from me, you workers of iniquity. I have never known you, and I'm glad I don't. But from what I do know is that I know a few of them to be terrible liars because I have been in the rooms when they have lied to the parents who have lost their children to police brutality and said that they would build bridges, but they never did. Now, Andre Dickens want to sit up there and talk about, what is it, he don't draw lines, he draws circles. He draws circles because he's confused. He's chasing his tail, trying to understand where his public policy will come from. This is a mayor who has absolutely no policy and has done nothing substantive for this city. He hangs his hat on midnight basketball, and I can assure you that more adults attend midnight basketball than so-called at-risk youth. And while we are talking about at-risk youth, I was an at-risk youth growing up in Southeast Atlanta, right by the South River Forest, because that environmental racism that Mariah said is to come has been there, baby. We've seen this before. I grew up with it. You know what I was at risk for? I was at risk for asthma. I was at risk for lead poisoning because we had landfills right there by my house that they didn't care about what I was breathing when I walked outside to walk up into East Atlanta Village. What we also had all the time is pollution in the South River. It is right now the second most polluted body of water in the United States of America. So when we talk about a mayor and we talk about what he's doing, Mayor Dickens is not the first one to ignore East Atlanta. From the time I've been in this world, East Atlanta, Southeast Atlanta has been ignored. And I'm talking about from Little 5 Points all the way down to Gresham Park and over to Kirkwood. That area has been neglected by each mayor of the city of Atlanta because even Maynard, as much as I love him, didn't do nothing for Southeast Atlanta. And I know that from growing up there. So the one time that the city of Atlanta decides to tap into that little pocket of Southeast Atlanta that is also unincorporated DeKalb County,
That's right.
which has been the excuse for ignoring it all this time.
Yep.
The one time you want to come over here and you want to do something where I grew up, where my granny still has her house that they will never take.
Come on.
The one time you decide to come, you want to cut down 380 out of 381 acres of trees to build what you call an 85-acre public training facility, but that's 85 acres spread out. That's not 85 acres grouped together. That's going to be more than 85 acres of trees that are being destroyed in the midst of a global climate crisis. We're having trouble breathing today because of fires up north. But imagine if they were to put a burn tower right there. Would without trees,
Right.
without the South River watershed, then what would it be like? When asked at the last NPUW meeting why he would not put this facility in another area, Mayor Dickens answered, because some high school is there. Oh, but what about McNair Senior High School? Oh, that other high school got too many white children that go to it because they cannot afford to breathe in pollutants. But the students at McNair Senior High School are expendable, just like I was as a child, just like my relatives were, just like my 8-year-old son was, because he woke up and went to sleep to gunfire from the existing gun range. I literally lived right behind that forest until about 2 months ago. I had to move because my child couldn't take it. He was always anxious and nervous. Every time he heard a loud sound, my baby's hitting the floor and trying to run and hide. Why is that okay for Black Daniel to experience that? Because white Daniel don't deserve that. We can't put that in another neighborhood and disturb their peace, but my children don't deserve to live in peace.
So sis, I'm gonna ask you again. How do we break that relationship?
Think about what he's doing. I want every Black Atlantan to think about what you don't have. If you don't have affordable housing, it's because they put the money in the cop city. If you can't pay your light bill, it's because that assistance got given back to the federal government, but they paying for cop city. If there are no policing alternatives and diversion initiatives in your community, it's because they're giving the money to cop city. If you fell into that pothole on Ponce de Leon, it's because they're giving the money to cop city. If you can't walk out of your door and breathe clean air, it's because they'd rather give it to cop city. If you as a person cannot go to your city council and you live in this city of Atlanta, and you live in Vine City, and Byron Amos ain't talked to you about the lead levels in the water that the EPA has been doing site remediation for and encourage you to get that done, it's because he'd rather vote for Cop City and he don't give a damn about your water. So Andre Dickens does not care about Black people. I'm gonna do a Kanye West right now, but I'm saying Andre Dickens don't care about Black people, and Andre Dickens ain't no different than nobody else. And some of those other council people up there who have those so-called legacy names ain't doing nothing for Black people. Michael Julian Bond don't want to be compared to his father, but he touts his name every chance he gets. But his father sold out too, was willing to do anything just to run against John Lewis for Congress way back in the day. He didn't care about friendship, he didn't care about community, and he didn't care about the city of Atlanta or the people he was supposed to represent. So once again, what is Andre Dickens doing for you? If he is willing to take police and make sure that they got SWAT tanks to roll around in, they walking around with ARs in your neighborhood, your children walking out the house to hearing gunshots constantly, what do Andre Dickens care about you? Does his children hear that?
So I'm gonna stop there.
Okay.
There is something to be said about when you're in the know, right? Because when you're in the know, we get the cheers. When you are on the opposite side, you go, wait a minute, I feel it's okay if my children have to endure death. The shotguns, it's okay if they endure death without having healthy water. It's okay if they have to endure for whatever reason, because I know I've been able to stay here, I've been able to keep my community, and that's true, and we have to talk about that inside of Black culture. Welcome to the world, white people. But we need to have that conversation, right? Because we know we have a portion of our people who feel they're comfortable in where they're at. Okay, I'm real clear, I have privilege, okay? A lot of us have privilege, and we know some of us have to know better to do better. Some of us have to be able to reflect something different. Some of us can move because we don't want our babies to take it anymore, right? But what I do know is we still have a gap, because I will never forget a few months ago, I saw an elder sister going, I'm scared, I'm okay with Cop City, bring it. What do I tell to an elder sister who is like, I am scared because this affects all of us. all age ranges. And so what are we doing? Mariah, I'm gonna ask you, what do we say to that?
I do feel like Reverend Jones answered the question though, and not necessarily telling someone the answer, but asking them the question the politicians never asked, which is, what would you like to see with $100 million?
Okay. Katherine Johnston was scared too.
Yes, she was. Tiffany, what do you think?
We have been for about a year talking to cohorts of people from the city. Atlanta is divided into police zones. So we've been talking to people from zones 1 through 6 individually and then putting them together, asking what safety means to them, asking how they feel about responses to harm that don't involve law enforcement, right? Because what we know is that the United States of America, because of its relationship to chattel slavery, has a very unique way of policing. So I've been doing advocacy before the United Nations now for about a year. And when we talk about what's happening in Atlanta, they are floored. Because Biden sent Andre over there to talk about ending systemic racism, right? And that was wild. But when we talk to them about our statistics, they can't even process our pretrial detention, right? That you gotta pay $100,000 to get out of jail before you even try, right? So part of this is removing police from the equation. Police spend most of their time at traffic stops. You know there are entire countries that don't use police for traffic stops. Where does most of the violence occur in our communities when we're talking about use of force? Pursuant to traffic stops. Because they're looking to smell the strong odor of burnt marijuana. The other thing that they use in their police reports is furtive glands, right? They have templates for purport narratives. In Ferguson, they found that the police officers were just popping names into a mail merge document, generating police reports with these key elements. And so some of this we have to acknowledge that Atlantans have been talking to this city about non-law enforcement responses to harm for a very long time, and we have been winning. Mayor Dickens sponsored the legislation to reimagine the Atlanta City Detention Center. We spent thousands of community hours for recommendations, and people were on one accord. People agreed, so there of course are people who may say, I feel unsafe. But the question is, what are we responding with? Because police don't keep us safe. It's statistically supported, it's anecdotally supported, right? And it's dishonest, what Mayor Dickens has done. And I ask you all, every Black-led public safety or community safety organization, legal reform organization is on the other side of this administration. Every single one. And so are the people. Only 13% of registered voters in Atlanta elected this man. And how did it happen? Because he sat up in a church and lied to Peoplestown and told them that he would let them stay in their homes if he was elected and he made it to the runoff. Were that not said, he would not be the mayor of Atlanta. So he's building his legacy on Ms. Darden and Tanya Washington and those of us who taught him about the criminal legal system. So it is our job to have these tiny conversations and these big conversations about what actually makes people safe. We cannot retreat, we cannot get tired, and we gotta put some money on it. We paid everybody that came to all of our meetings. And we will continue to do that because we understand your time is valuable. But we have to be clear that policy is concrete, right? It is not a feeling, it's not a vibe. It's not police morale. Where is the morale of the community? When I know that if I send my baby cousin to the store, I live in Southwest Atlanta. I live in 30311 or 30331. If I send my cousin to the store, I don't know what greets him on the way back home because my clients that I represented as a public defender were beaten and maimed on the way to the store. And so that is a real and concrete thing, and the sad thing is Mayor Dickens was trained up by us on public safety, and he has turned his back. He knows the right thing to do. He refuses to do it because the Atlanta Police Foundation and Buckhead and the conservative state legislature will not allow him to do
And
that.
I am going to say thank you. We are not going to leave you, but we do have a town hall where we want to hear your reflection points, right? And so we want you all we're actually going to come off the stage. But thank you, Mariah. Thank you, Tiffany. Thank you all for being here, Reverend and KJ. And so the time is not our friend when we have so many thoughts. I'm actually going to turn this over to Brother Coleman. And we're going to transition off the stage. Give us 1 second. Thank you all. Thank you.
Okay, y'all. I know y'all been sitting here. You've been hearing some history and some brilliance. And maybe at a certain point, this started to feel like a bit of a TV show, like a really engaging documentary. I don't know if y'all know, but you have a job tonight. Did someone tell you you signed up for a job when you walked in? Nobody told you? Okay, the pay is questionable. You know, it's appetizers. We're paying y'all on appetizers. Okay? Y'all's job is to get skilled up, to practice talking about Pop City to the people you love. Because we're not just here to educate y'all, right? Y'all are brilliant human beings. You have education already in your brains. But what we are here to do, and what these panelists did so lovely, is we are here to ignite y'all to go out and talk to 5 more people over the next month. 5 people over the next month. Now you might be like, Che, I just came to this event. I just learned about Pop City 5 minutes ago. I don't know about that. I feel nervous. I want y'all to look on your seats. Some of y'all have some cards on your seats. Y'all see them? Put them in there if you got them. All those cards have questions on them. I want you to turn to your neighbor. We're going to bring a little church in here. I want you to turn to your neighbor. Okay. And I want you to ask them the question on your card. And I want you to listen to their answer. Not pretending that you're listening because you're coming up with your answer, but really listening to your neighbor, okay? And then we're going to switch. Now, why are we doing this? Because we're getting you ready, right? We're training you up. We're getting practice so that we can talk about safety together so it feels comfortable. Anybody do any kind of sports? Any athletes out here? Come on, athletes. Who else? Okay. There's a beautiful, beautiful statistic, somatic statistic. You know when folks are training for the Olympics? Say I'm a runner and I'm training for the Olympics. I want to do everything I can to be a really skilled runner. So I'm going to look back at the video of my practice, right? I'm going to see what I can do to change. Maybe I want to bring my arm in a little bit. Now, how many times do you think I need to bring my arm in order to have muscle memory, in order to do that kind of automatically? Give me some numbers. What y'all think? Every single time. But how many? 6. 6. What you got? 15. What else? 200. 300 times. I got to bring my elbow in so I remember how to do that. But I'm not just doing that like down the street on the belt line. I'm doing this at the Olympics. And so under the pressure of being at the Olympics, how many times do you think I need to practice bringing my arm in? 10. You already know. Don't be answering that question. 3,000. 3,000 repetitions. That's how many repetitions I need under pressure. The pressure of talking to your neighbor about stopping Cop City for the first time. The pressure of going to your church and talking to your deacon and saying, I want to make an announcement. The pressure of maybe getting some neighbors together and going to your NPU meeting. That's the kind of practice we have to have in order to feel comfortable under that pressure. So we are here together. It's a safe space, you know what I mean? Like, no one's going to yell at you if you say the wrong thing. So this is your laboratory to practice right now. Turn to your neighbor. We're going to give you 5 minutes to have a little conversation, and we're going to come back together. Here we
So just real quick while you're talking, when you finish with this conversation, this panel was so powerful. I mean, I hate to interrupt right now, but please give this panel one more round of applause real quick. They worried about me and how I call out people. I don't know what they're worried about me for. After you all do this, any questions that you have, just let me know after you finish this conversation. For the panelists, direct you up here up under the light. They ask for you to come up under the light for video purposes. Any questions or comments you have for this panel? All right, peace.
Thanks for watching, everyone. This is Chris with Unicorn Riot. We're live at the Gathering spot in Atlanta. Earlier, you just heard a panel discussion that I think is about to transition into Q&A. The panel is called "From Red Dogs to Cop City: Dirty South's History of Overpolicing Atlanta." The speakers on stage right now, who you heard from earlier, and we'll hear from again, are Dr. Mariah Parker on the left, Tiffany Williams-Roberts of the Southern Center for Human Rights, Reverend Kiana Jones from Community Movement Builders, and KJ Hinson from Black Men Build and the Black Male Initiative Georgia. So this has been a speaking event as part of the 6th week of action to stop Cop City. Right now the group is doing discussion exercises to help organize the petition referendum to get a vote to cancel the lease for Cop City onto the Atlanta election ballot. And I think we'll be hearing a Q&A with some other panelists in a few minutes. Thanks for watching. You can go to our website, unicornriot.ninja, to see more of our coverage from the protests and stuff this week here in Atlanta.
So how many of you have filled out this? So show of hands, show of hands. Keep them up. How many of y'all don't know what this is? Oh, that makes me so happy. All right, okay. So one of the questions that was asked on the panel was, how do I get involved? What do I do to support? We need every single person in this room to support us getting signatures. Every single person, even if you don't live in Atlanta proper, even if you're visiting, even if you weren't registered for the last election, you can still help collect signatures with a buddy who is registered, who is an Atlanta citizen. So if you are excited about stopping Cop City, is anyone excited about it? I'm not judging y'all, but I'm judging y'all. Are y'all excited or what? Okay, all right. Y'all, they give y'all so much energy. I'm just trying to give it back to them. I want to see some folks at our table at the end of the night who are interested in helping us to get signatures. You got a church, you got a bike group, you got a neighborhood that you love, then that's your role. Okay. We had some beautiful, beautiful, beautiful panelists share some really dope history, and I want to make some space for y'all to do two things. One, ask questions, right here. Two, share what came out of your conversations. Now, don't share nobody's business, right? But give us the tea. Like, what did y'all talk about? Where did you get stuck? Where were you like, oh, I don't know how to answer that, or I don't want to ask that question. It feels weird. What y'all got? What y'all got? Yeah, over here. Wait. Let's wait for a mic to get to you first. Or, look at this.
Anybody that has any questions, raise your hand.
And then right over here next. Yeah? How about you first?
So I'll answer both of your questions. I'll try to be as fast as I can. Our question was, you were given complete authority for one day. How do you hold those accountable who caused you harm? So the response that we got was essentially transformative justice. Do y'all know what transformative justice is?
School us.
So it's typically called restorative justice, but the problem with restorative justice is it comes from West Africa, Burkina Faso, where they have a society set up to make it work. We don't have that here. We don't have any justice to restore. Hence transformative as opposed to restorative justice. I think the problem that we're coming up with, we don't have a solution for. The only way transformative justice can work is if society, our neighborhood was set up to hold people accountable. We don't have that here, so if you ask where we got stuck, that's where we got stuck. Now I'm gonna ask you a question. We just came here to California. We're in the area. We're now in Atlanta, so we aren't able to sign the form yet. We do activist work there, and we want to do it here. So we're trying to just hang out and figure out what's going on before we insert ourselves. We do not want to be those people from the outside inserting ourselves into your city. So we came here to figure out what's happening so that we can help properly. I work with a company called NACD, National Association of Crime Police Directors. So we have the ear of the entire nation, public health field, 50 states, 9 territories, tribes, pueblos, nations as well, and human impact partners. Human impact partners just this morning asked about Cop City because they didn't hear about it, and NACD has not heard about it. So they have tasked me to tell them about what's happening. I need hard facts as much as possible. I love the way you speak. If y'all can just help me with these hard facts that I can share with others so that they can help, you shouldn't have any trouble getting this out about the signatures, but I need your help getting those hard facts.
So we have a commitment to make some connections for some hard facts.
So if y'all can talk to me
Beautiful.
at some point.
Beautiful. Thank you. For folks intrigued by the term transformative justice, there's a great website called transformharm.org. Transformharm.org if you want to do your own research. Yes, we have another question coming up.
Okay. So my question was,
In the mic.
so my question was, when you leave the house, what do you bring with you answer was, I kind of like stumbled on it because I wish I had more to bring with me to feel safe, but I said my phone and pepper spray. I guess that's good enough, that's all I've got, but, you know, I wish I had like, I wish I didn't have to think about like how to convict myself when I like leave a home space, you know what I mean? So, that's mine.
Thank you so much for sharing. Yeah.
Someone else over here with their hand up. Is that you, sister? Yeah. Sister just said she's nervous. Did y'all see her perform earlier? Drop that jewel on us, form of poetry. Like, you nervous. Come on now.
So, what's the lie being told about why the facility is being built?
I see why she was nervous.
Because, like I said, I live in Southwest Atlanta. And not only is our air bad, not only do we have an exuberant amount of police crossing Cascade and RDA, Lee Street and Lowry, and we don't have a close grocery store without food, fresh water. So how do we, as average income Americans, not celebrities in Atlanta, combat $90 million? And I know you said it earlier, but I just wanted to say it again so I understand. Am I clear that Mayor Andre Dickens is the boss of the chief of police and could just easily say, don't do this? Okay.
Yes, so I think the biggest lie is that the facility is needed. It's not needed, it's wanted. There are multiple public safety training facilities throughout the state of Georgia. I think it's a matter of convenience, but I think more than anything, it's a matter of the fact that Mayor Dickens has this vanity project that he believes would be his legacy. Now, when you hear Councilman Michael Julian Bond speak, he always says that the facility we have is decrepit, it's dilapidated, it's this, it's that, it's the other. And then my question is, well, whose fault is that? Who was in charge of that, Councilman Bond? How long have you been on council, and what has your oversight been for whoever was responsible for that facility? Because again, if you bought your child a car, buy your child a Honda. They literally drive it until the wheels fall off, don't get no oil change, don't get the brakes done, don't get the tires changed, don't do nothing, right? Are you gonna go and then give your child more money to buy a Tesla? So if the city of Atlanta could not maintain what they had, why should taxpayers pay more than $67 million? More than $67 million, because the original amount that was stated was that the taxpayer portion would only be $30 million. How does it more than double? That's just simple math. If you were running a business and you wanted to buy something for your business and you had a projected cost, could you afford to go ahead and buy it for more than double if it was going to put you in the red? So then why would the city of Atlanta think that it's okay to take that from the taxpayers of the city of Atlanta so that they can build a facility? And when you talk about hard facts, a hard fact is that in the original plans, it was stated that this would have a mock city for training in quote-unquote urban warfare. Urban, meaning related to a metropolitan area, but unfortunately, unenlightened people think that urban means black. Now, how much training are we gonna do in urban warfare when the urban area is completely white? Because gentrification is there, right? So I doubt that they would do this in a different area, but that area of Southeast Atlanta and unincorporated DeKalb is still heavily black, has not been hit hard with gentrification like many other black neighborhoods in the city of Atlanta. And they lie and say we have nowhere else to do this. And that's a lie. The city of Atlanta has a lot of blighted properties also that they could use to build a facility.
And I want to add something.
were reconsidering the task force to transform the city jail, and there was some other paper that came up. Michael Julian Bond said in that meeting, when asked why we need to transform the then empty jail into a center for wellness and healing, he said, well, I agree that we need a center for wellness and healing, but why can't you all, have y'all thought about putting it over at the old prison farm? Because this facility was home to a prison farm, so there are enslaved Africans, right, buried in that land. He said, why don't you all put the Center for Wellness and Healing at the prison farm? So they have been itching to do something with that land, and the Atlanta Police Foundation has been itching to expand its real estate footprint, right? And they were determined to do something with the prison farm, and Cop Cities was stuck.
That's right, that's
I
right.
got another question coming at you.
Before that question, one more reminder. How many people are y'all talking to over the next month?
5.
5. 10. Oh, people showing out. Okay. That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
5 people over the next month. We're going to close out with this question. On your way out, though, even if you can't sign this petition, sign up to help us get folks' signatures. Your neighbors, your boo, your kids, right? Your churchgoers, your bike club, whoever. We need your support. All right, last question, bring us home.
I have a question, more of a statement about the lie that's being told about Cop City. I live in Buckhead, and I'm on the next gravel. I'm sorry. And what I've noticed is that a lot of people are complaining about police response time, crime, and so in Buckhead, they believe that Cop City is going to be the thing that keeps them safe in Buckhead. I'm not really sure how that translates. But that's the lie. The lie is that we're going to build this thing and then we're going to show up on time when you call us. When, I don't know, like, police don't come until after crime has been committed anyway. Which, your parents, anybody who's ever experienced crime. And they don't catch people that commit crime. So that's the lie. That's the lie that we're going to keep safe, that it's going to change something about your neighborhood, that it's going to get rid of the homeless people in Buckhead now, because that's a whole nother thing. Everybody is very upset that they have to see the homeless. They
You know what fixes homelessness? Housing.
Right.
You put someone in the house, they're not homeless anymore. But I digress.
But yeah, so all of the people that are funding this thing don't want to have to see the problem. And after the pandemic happened, they had to see the problem. It started with the water boys in Buckhead, and they didn't like that. And then it's gotten, more. There's more homelessness. So they put, the rocks under the bridges, and they cut down all of the trees where people were living. So yeah, that's a lot.
I was just gonna say, just specifically to the water boy thing, investing in economic empowerment and opportunities for these young kids to make money and mental health services will keep them off the corners, will keep them off the freeways, will keep them out of the neighborhood and into a bag, into something that they actually care about. They don't have time, there's nowhere for them to go outside. Cleveland Avenue desperately needs investment, but we can't talk to Antonio Lewis about that.
Yeah, that's a great question. Just brought up. I want to just recently Antonio Lewis sponsored a Hip-Hop 50 event down at City Hall with the Power Awards. There was a lot of celebrities and things of that nature. My question is, Atlanta around the world is known for the hype, the entertainment, things of that nature. What are some of the strategies that you are using to engage that part of Atlanta to get them involved to stop Cop City?
So, our organization in particular has been partnered with Bullpen Battle Rap League, has been partnered with URL in ways to really reach individuals where they're at. We've done 2 battle rap events, really engaging with the, the the unengaged black voting population, right? They're having these conversations, letting them know about what's going on, and really talking to them in a way that they understand, right? Meeting people where they're at is the base of what we need to do to get people on board with stopping Cop City. But specifically to your point about the celebrities and the artists who make money off this city, who brag on being from Atlanta, the T.I.s, the Killer Mikes, the folks who have nonprofit organizations, the Lil Babies, the folks who act like they're in the community doing stuff, but they're not in our faces, they're not in our rooms, they're not with our organizations building and on the street, they're not canvassing, they're not helping justice impacted people. And those are the things that we need to start doing, is holding those people accountable who make money off of this city. The Tyler Perrys who just bought BET. What has he done for the city of Atlanta? Those people need to be in the conversation. So it's going to them, knocking on their door, the same way that we bird dog our councilman or we bird dog the mayor or whoever. We need to go to those people and let them know that you are a part of this city, but you're a part of the problem if you're not part of the solution.
And I would say at Southern Center, we have worked with NFL, for example, ball players who were here for the Super Bowl. We wanted them to see the criminalization of poverty in our city court, so we took them to court and they sat and they watched judges assess fines and fees on homeless people or people experiencing homelessness, assess bail on people that couldn't afford it. And then we met with the chief judge and the deputy judge and some other folks, and they thought that they were gonna, they were groupies, right? They were happy to meet these ball players. But because we were able to train them up on these talking points about any cash bail, about the criminalization of poverty, it was actually those conversations were shut down because what we knew is that if we didn't have those conversations, they were going to sweep all of the people experiencing homelessness from downtown before the Super Bowl. So at Southern Center, we provide technical policy assistance and other support to whoever needs it. We're at 60 Walton Street. If you bring a cohort of celebrities or creatives, athletes to us, regardless of their political affiliation, we are happy to provide political education and talk through which groups they can work with around strategy, because we understand that information is a big part. We don't turn people away, but unfortunately, people like to take pictures. And so the number of people who come to us is really small versus the ones who want to run down to City Hall anytime there are balloons in the rotunda. They like balloons.
Hi. My question is, what is the plan for us as pro-black voters? Are we going to continue showing up to these candidates that we know are going to turn around and stop us back? Especially as young black voters, there's a lot of critique. I'm constantly trying to meet people where they are regarding if you should continue to vote, if you should not. But if we know that we're going to get hundreds of hands, the others, we can vote.
So, I was a politician one time, reformed, I'm sorry. But, and I left all of that because I was very sickened by the cycles of coming out and asking people to vote and then becoming stagnant and stale and forgetting where you came from once you got in office, and cycles over and over again, and noticing that we would have an upsurge of movement that would go into an election cycle and then it would fade and then people would not have to be accountable to anyone. But it was that movement that had the power to put someone in office, and it's that movement and that pressure of consciously organized people that can actually move anything. Because the Cop City still isn't built because people have occupied the forest for 2 years to put their bodies on the line to protect that forest. And because people have put pressure on the contractors and the banks funding the project and the corporate funders behind the project and the Atlanta Police Foundation, by occupation, by gathering in masses for direct action to get things done. And I believe that if we continue to put energy into those areas, we can do what we can do. We can do just about anything. We can do just about anything. And so I'm really, really hopeful that we can harness this energy that there is around the referendum right now, there is around Cop City right now, and continue to build out a mass movement capable of just making all of these politicians with their balloons in the rotunda completely irrelevant. Because we the people will decide what happens in our community. It's not something else.
Hey, good people. First off, I want to thank you all for this amazing event. Here to meet you. And I met the last time in Riot, finally meeting you. And to the dear sister who to speak about the Red Dogs. I wanted to give these to you. These are what are called cops trading cards. So you've heard of cops baseball cards? These are cops trading cards. Our first series features the Brunswick All-Stars, everybody responsible for Ahmaud Arbery's death. The second series we're calling Martyrs and Monsters, after Dungeons and Dragons. And they feature none other than Sarah Lee Davis, the head of the Red Dogs here in the city of Atlanta, who took her talents to a great place called Memphis, and has continued to run the operation known as the Scorpions, or the Red Dogs, just by another name. So my job is to put these people on blast, to show this horrible crime, and to also make sure you never forget these faces. My job is to name the nameless and shame the shameless. And this is what I do. And I come to this horrible occupation because my mother, who was a great scholar here in the city of Atlanta, at Emory Roslin School of Public Health, when she retired, she lost her life to police brutality. Not only her, but also my niece in utero. She never tasted air because a taser was pointed at my sister's body. And so I come to this occupation very reluctant. But as an artist, I must do what I can. And so here I take my stand. My name is Son Christopher. The organization is called IamCreativeJustice.org. We provide scholarships to children who have lost their lives, their parents, to police brutality. And my goal again, and I ask you, do you want to live in the world that has been given to you, or the world that you create? I choose to live in the one that I create. So help me, and help us, and we must do what we can, because I love this city, and I know that there is only more brutality coming. James Baldwin said it best: what you have witnessed in 2021 was the latest slave revolt. That's what you saw, and Cop City is now that backlash. Thank you for your ears, thank you for your time, and again, my name is Son Christopher. If you like some cards and you'd like to make a donation, you're welcome to get some from me, and again, be more than blessed. Cheers.
Thank you, Son Christopher. And with that, I believe we are closing out tonight. Don't forget to check out this table as you leave, get information about how you can help cannabis, and go ahead and text one of those 5 people now. Your 5 folks that you're talking to over the next 30 days, go ahead and text them and say, hey, I want to talk to you about something really important. Thank you all for coming out, y'all. Have a good night. CopCityVote.com is where you can get more information.
Thanks for joining us to watch the stream tonight, everyone. This has been Chris Sciano with Unicorn Riot. We're here at the Gathering Spot in Atlanta. You just watched a panel about sort of the history and present of like racism and over-policing in law enforcement in Atlanta. This is part of the 6th Stop Cop City week of action that's been going on since last Saturday. There's been different like protests and workshops and events happening in and around Atlanta since June 24th, and the week of action is still happening until tomorrow. So yeah, if you want to learn more about what's going on this week with the week of action, or the whole Stop Cop City movement in general, the whole situation with the Atlanta Police Foundation trying to build an urban warfare center by destroying a large portion of Atlanta's South River Forest, and the militant resistance to it, community organizing, go to unicornriot.ninja. There's a tab that says coverage of the Atlanta Forest movement or something like that. Yeah, so just go to unicornriot.ninja, check out our coverage. If you want to support us continuing to do this work, please go to unicornriot.ninja/donate. Yeah, we're going to go ahead and take the stream down now. Thanks everyone for watching.